ought to be in pictures. You're wonderful to see. You ought to
Hello
be
and
in
welcome to
pictures
Deep Dive Movie
all
Reviews with my friend Steve Hackman and
over
myself, James Marsh. This episode, it's the end of 2022, so we're doing our top 10 films of the year.
Hey, but before we go to that top 10 list, if you haven't already subscribed to Deep Dive Movie Reviews, it'd be a great favor to us if you went ahead and did so. We'd love to increase those subscriptions at year's end. And while you're there, go ahead and hit that little bell. That way you're notified every time we drop a new video. And just as a reminder, Deep Dive Movie Reviews does contain spoilers, so you have been warned. James, let's get into this. Top 10 of 2022.
Okay, so yeah, you've got a top 10, I've got a top 10. We don't know what's on each other's lists. I think we've been quite sort of fluid when it comes to what qualifies and what doesn't. If it's a new movie and we've seen it this year, then it counts. I think whether it's a streamer or a theatrical movie, a festival title, whatever it is, I think if it's new, it counts. So how we're going to do this is, Steve, you're going to go first with your number 10. If it's not on my list, you go ahead and tell us why you like it. If it is on my list a little bit later, we will wait until it hits my list, and we'll move straight on to my number 10, and vice versa. If I say something that's on your list a little bit later, we will wait until we get to the highest ranked position. And hopefully, we will have plenty of healthy discussion, some agreement, but some disagreement. I'm really excited to know what's on your list.
I got to admit, it was a lot easier when this was 15 or 20. Getting it down to 10 is really, really difficult. I was saying to you off air, it's like choosing between my children. You know, it's like, how do you rank? How do you rank? And, you know, you start asking yourself these internal questions of, you know, it's something that's shot really well, has a really tight script, but maybe you didn't enjoy it as another film that maybe is not as tight or produced as well, but just leaves you with this enjoyment feeling. And so there's so many dynamics that comes into anybody's top 10. So without further ado, I'm going to go in. My number 10 is Something in the Dirt with Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson's kind of COVID shot in their apartment about two guys who couldn't be more different, who come together to try to document a psychic anomaly that has occurred in their apartment, and just the dynamics. I think we recently reviewed it, and so I encourage anybody to go there and see our review of Something in the Dirt. But just to watch a relationship begin to break down as paranoia seeps in, and different elements of what makes us human. The reason I love this film is it's so tight. It really, because I was unfamiliar with Moorhead and Benson's and any of their previous films, I went in with modest expectations. And anytime you go into a film and a film exceeds your expectations, I instantly knew this had to be one of my top 10 films of the year, just because it swung for the fences. It attempted to do something in a very minimalist, contained environment, and yet was able to explore the natures of reality and conspiracy and religion. And it's just a potpourri of fun. And so that's why it's on my list.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, I love their work. I love how they tackle big ideas with such sort of modest means. You know, they're very low budget films, so, you know, they're very simple setups, and yet they never let that hold them back from really going out there and exploring just sort of great ideas, really kind of sort of abstract concepts that you are used to seeing in sort of much bigger budget movies. Okay, my number 10, and that is Matt Reeves' The Batman.
Wow.
Yep. So, you know, I'll admit it. I am a big Batman fan. I do read a lot of the comics, and you know, as great as the Christopher Nolan movies are, and as wonderful and carnivalesque as the Tim Burton movies are, I don't feel that any Batman movie that has come to the screen thus far has really nailed just the tone and the mood of the comic books as well as this latest version. You know, it's arguably sort of darker and grimmer and moodier than ever before. But I think in large part that really is what attracts me to the comics and to the comic book characters, as it puts you in the mind of the character so much. And I think the voiceover here really helped. That Robert Pattinson was great in capturing that kind of young inexperienced, depressed anti-hero who's doing this out of some kind of compulsion as opposed to a desire to become a hero or anything like that. And then there's this great sort of rogues gallery of villains. Colin Farrell's great, Zoe Kravitz makes a great Catwoman, and I felt just the whole package just really, for me, hit the spot. It came out early in the year, and I've just circled back to it again and again and again. It was the one that I was almost pushing off my top 10 repeatedly, but I was like, you know what? No, stick to it. I know it's a big blockbuster, but I'd loved it. I did really like it, and I'm gonna keep it in there.
Fantastic. I really enjoyed it as well. It would make my top 15 or 20 probably, but not my top 10. But my number 9 is Broker, Hirokazu Koreeda's film, and you introduced me to some of his work, and I just love this whole film about a Korean. It's not a Korean family. It's a hodgepodge family. How these people come together over this baby, and how their lives are thrown together, and how in and amidst this situation, they form a de facto family. It's got a lot of humor. It's got a lot of sentimentality. And I think I've just become, and through deep dive movie reviews, this whole world of Asian cinema is opening up to me. And I think for the year, Broker was the film that I most enjoyed, and I knew had to be included in my top 10.
Nice. So that was your kind of gateway movie, if you like, for the year.
Yes.
That's
absolutely.
excellent. That's excellent. And I'm really pleased that I was able to introduce Hirokazu Koreeda to you. Obviously, it's a bit different because he's a Japanese filmmaker making a film in Korea for the first time. But it's a wonderful jumping off point to a much bigger world of movies. Okay, so my number 9 is Todd Field's Tar. Now, we reviewed this one quite recently, and we went back and forth about, is this going to be in our top 10 or is it not going to be in our top 10? But it's a film that has really stuck with me, that I catch myself thinking about over and over and over again. I think Cate Blanchett is absolutely phenomenal in the lead role as this absolute monster of a character, which you occasionally kind of catch yourself agreeing with and sympathizing with. But I think technically as well, the film is such an incredible sort of audio visual sort of landscape that becomes a labyrinth, that becomes a kind of riddle, and more increasingly enigmatic as the film goes on. And those are the films that I really like, and those are the films I respond to the most. Are the ones that stick with you and that you're still trying to work out and nail down exactly what it means days and weeks later.
I couldn't agree more. If I've got a top 15 list, and it made my top 15 list, but it didn't make my top 10. But I echo everything you said. My number 8, the German produced All Quiet on the Western Front. I just love this new adaptation of the classic. We've been working through every Best Picture, so we recently had to watch the original All Quiet on the Western Front. And if I'm honest, when you said you wanted to review it, I was a little hesitant because it's a depressing movie, and I know everybody dies, and I know where this is going to end up. And I thought, man, am I going to watch 2 hours of guys slugging it out again? But it was just shot so wonderfully, and there was some new interpretations off the original film that we mentioned in our review of All Quiet on the Western Front that really just expanded on some of the original ideas. And it's the classic anti-war film. I thought they did a wonderful job in this adaptation, and so it made my top 10.
Excellent. Yeah, it was on my top 15 list. Didn't quite make it. It's one of the ones that actually kept sort of nudging Batman out, and I was like, no. I think I like Batman more. But it's a gorgeous film. I think my only regret is I wish we'd had the chance to see it on the big screen. It's so cinematic. It's gorgeous to look at.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
absolutely.
Great movie. Okay, my number 8, and I think this will be a little controversial for you, is Luca Guadagnino's Bones and All.
Oh, you went there. You went there.
I actually did. I mean, I love this movie, and and it's another one that I kept thinking about all the time. I think Taylor Russell is a really compelling young heroine. And on the surface, it's the story of sort of young cannibals in love on the run, but it isn't really. For me, it was a film just about finding your place in society. I mean, it's no accident that she's being portrayed as a young African American woman, but it's not just about race. It's about sort of gender. It's about sexuality. It's about just identity. I think it's just about feeling that you're different from anybody else, which I think is a journey that all young people take, and older people too. But I think it's very much sort of one of these coming of age, rites of passage stories.
Yeah.
And in this case, it just has that slightly sort of more visceral edge to it by making the thing that makes her different the fact that she loves human flesh. And Mark Rylance, I mean, Timothy Chalamet is great, but Mark Rylance is just one of the creepiest characters of the year in this.
Yeah, absolutely. This is, I think, our most divergent film probably of the year. It wouldn't make my top 15 or my top 20. Everything else we've mentioned, we're like, oh, it almost would make it, almost make it. I echo some of your sentiments. It's just hard for me to enjoy this kind of film. And so, yeah, wouldn't make mine, but I certainly understand why you see it the way you do. My number 7 is Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Okay, now that is on my list a little bit later.
I thought it would be. I thought
Yeah.
we're going to nail it with it there. So
hold
we'll pause
that
there.
thought. Hold that thought.
Now, should we go to your number 7? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so my number 7 is the documentary Sarah Dose's Fire of Love. Now, this has been a great year for documentaries, actually, and throughout the year there were at one point as many as 3 or 4 documentaries in my top 10, including sort of Navalny, about the Russian politician. There was Moon Age Daydream, the David Bowie documentary. But in the end, I pushed them out, and I thought, no, I'll just have the one in there. And this is a National Geographic documentary directed by Sarah Dose and narrated by the actress and filmmaker Miranda July. And it's the story of these 2 French volcanologists, Katia and Maurice Kraft, who found each other against the odds, and they had 2 shared passion. One was each other, and the other was volcanoes. And during sort of the 70s, they became pioneers in documentary filmmaking, educational, instructive documentaries about volcanoes, putting themselves in harm's way. And eventually this passion quite literally consumed them. And the film makes no secret of that. It's on National Geographic. So if you have Disney Plus, it's right there right now. And it is this absolutely fantastic, beautiful portrait of a young couple, well, they weren't that young, of a couple in love. It is, on the one hand, this brilliant, vivid documentary about volcanoes and the footage that they have captured. It uses a lot of their footage in the documentary, but also it shows the story of, really inspired filmmakers. And I would love nothing more now than to go and actually find some of their movies and watch some of those, because they obviously had a real keen eye, a real quirky sense of humor that they inject into their work, and put themselves where no one really should have gone in order to get that one shot. And arguably the sad truth is it pays off. It's spectacular.
That's the first one you've mentioned that I haven't seen, so I'll have to check that out on Disney Plus.
It's great. It really, really is. It's great.
My number 6 is Ralph Fiennes in The Menu. I just recently saw this film, and it instantly went on my top 10. Again, I didn't think I was going to enjoy this movie as much as I enjoyed it, but its social critique, its fusion with these kind of macabre concepts with a culinary feast was just, and like you mentioned about Tar, how you keep going back to it in your mind. I find myself continually going back to this film. I can't wait to rewatch it again. I just so enjoyed this movie, and Ralph Fiennes just plays it perfectly. Everybody in the show is just miserable people, and there's this great feeling of they know they're miserable people. They know they're getting their just desserts, and so there is this bit of social commentary that is just so well done, and so it's so relevant for our times. So yeah, number 6, The Menu.
Yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It pokes fun at an area of our culture that infuriates me. This ridiculous kind of abstract foodie culture where you are being served foam on a brick and told that it's the greatest work of all time. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It's Mark Mylod, who creator of Succession as well, and it's targeting the exact same people. And had a really good time with that one. So my number 6 is Jordan Peele's Nope. So this one is, Jordan Peele is getting increasingly ambitious, I think, with every film that he attempts, every story that he is trying to tell. Here he tries to interweave so many different ideas. You've got a science fiction movie, you've got a Western, you've got a horror movie. It's a movie about sort of dealing with trauma and childhood trauma of family expectations. There's obviously a bit of a race angle in there as well, intertwined with the history of Hollywood. But it's also just about cinema as much as it's about anything else. It's about trying to capture that perfect shot and the lengths that people will go in order to do that. There are so many things that this movie is about, and I was grateful that we did get the opportunity to do a whole episode on this one, because this is a movie that I think the more time you give to it and the more you look into it, the more questions it raises, and that's only a good thing.
Absolutely. It makes my top 15, not my top 10, but I echo a lot of those sentiments. And in my subsequent viewing, my second viewing of it, I appreciated it more than even the first time I watched it. I was able to pick out some things that I hadn't seen before. And it is extremely nuanced and layered meanings in that film, and can highly recommend it. Absolutely. Number 5 for me. I got to go there. Top Gun Maverick.
It's coming.
Is it coming? Okay.
It's on my list.
So you put it up even higher than I did. I got it at number 5. And
I did.
Okay, so we'll get to that. So what is your number 5?
Okay, so my number 5 is Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Okay. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. I don't know what else there is to say. I mean, Michelle Yeoh finally, getting the lead role that I think she has been long overdue, a role that sort of encompasses everything about her career in a really smart, interesting, kind of multiverse stranded action. It's a romance, it's an action movie, it's a martial arts movie, it's a sci-fi movie, it's a family drama. It's everything. I think what they achieved, and on the scale that they achieved it, the Daniels, the directors, just pulled off a minor masterpiece here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's just a wonderful film, and I think you and I, living in Hong Kong, we can appreciate some of the Chinese elements in this film. Like, there's elements that I know that I only appreciated because I'm so familiar with Chinese culture, having lived in it and for 30 years. But yeah, I totally agree. This was a Michelle Yeoh vehicle that she just rides this. And yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis is fantastic in it. Short Round, what's his name?
Is it Ke Huy Quan? I want to say without looking.
Yeah. Just the cast is dynamic. I just loved, like I said, in addition to Michelle Yeoh, Jamie Lee Curtis's character. I love how Jamie Lee Curtis, who has been known for years and years of being a sex symbol and always kind of, flaunting her physicality, has been able to subvert that notion. In the last few films, she just really leans into being kind of a dull, ugly, just rewatching Knives Out again and watching her playing somebody who's just nasty and unappealing and physically unattractive. I just give kudos, in addition to Michelle Yeoh, to Jamie Lee Curtis in that film. My number 4 is Notre Dame on Fire. And I went into this film, it was the French Film Festival here in Hong Kong, and went to see it with my family. I thought it was going to be a documentary, and it's not. It's a dramatization of what occurred at the Notre Dame fire a couple of years ago, and the extent to which firefighters went to save Her Lady. And it was riveting. It was done so well. At the end, when they're giving the decision, if they think they can save the cathedral, if they can save this one section from burning down, but they're almost sure some folk are going to lose their lives, and they're not going to make it mandatory that anybody goes. And when you just start seeing all those hands going up and them going up into this area, and thousands of people along the River Seine singing Amazing Grace as this fire is coming out of Notre Dame, left me with probably the cinematic moment that was the highlight for the year for me. And so I knew immediately this film was going to be in my top 10. I just wasn't sure. It's number 4.
Wow. Yeah, I remember when you watched this. So I haven't seen this, and I remember when you watched this and you came out of it and you were like, "Oh my god, that movie was amazing! It's one of my favorite movies of the year." And I was surprised to hear that. I got to be honest, because obviously, yeah, well, I'm aware of the results. I hadn't heard of this movie. I thought it was a documentary at first as well. I didn't realize it was a drama. I think it's interesting that so far this is the only film on your list that I haven't seen. And so
Yes.
so far to date, we have one film on each of our lists, both with the word fire in the title, that the other person hasn't seen. I'm sure it speaks volumes for something. Okay, so my number 4 is Martin McDonagh's The Banshees of Inisherin.
I've got it on my list too, but higher up.
All right. Okay, let's
Okay.
wait.
Okay.
Over to you.
Number 3 is the Knives Out sequel, Glass Onion. Just saw this on Christmas night. And again, I think it produced such an enjoyable response in my family. And we were so engrossed in it. And just watching Daniel Craig coming back as Benoit Blanc and that Southern drawl, and Ryan Johnson's just his ability to create these layers, these of convoluted storylines and interconnectedness. I mean, he's the one who brought us Looper 10 years ago, where things are just kind of points that are out there are just connecting. And when it all comes together, you think, man, that's incredible. Edward Norton, just an all-star cast. We're going to do a full review of this shortly, but just in lieu of that, I'll just give a little caveat intro to say this film is so good, so worth watching, so enjoyable, directed so well, and like The Menu, is able to just do social criticism, take pot shots at some of the most despicable sectors of society, the Elon Musk billionaires, the Kardashian celebrities, the journalists, the politicians. Just watching Daniel Craig bring all of them down to size is worth it being in my top 10 for that alone.
Yeah, it didn't make my top 10, but it wasn't far off, that's for sure. I hope they make more of these. I love what Ryan Johnson and Daniel Craig are doing. I mean, I'm a lifelong Agatha Christie fan, and this one is hitting all the right notes. And for the time being, I shall leave it at that.
It probably, I got to give it also to say, it's probably high up on my list just because I just saw it, and it still has that, ooh, it's so good feeling, Oh,
sure. It has that glass onion sparkle.
That's it. It's still there.
All right. Okay. So my number 3 is Joseph Kosinski's Top Gun Maverick.
There we go. Boom.
Yeah. I mean, this movie it's succeeded in every way no one ever thought it was going to. I mean, it was the one movie that everyone was like, really? Do we need a Top Gun sequel? After all this time, especially. And then they sat on it for 3 years because they were so convinced and certain that yes, we did need this movie. We did need Top Gun Maverick, and they were totally right. And what I love about the movie is that the movie is about exactly that. The movie is about the reservations that we had about whether or not this movie even deserves to exist or whether there is any need for it. It's a movie about Tom Cruise wrestling with his star persona and still doing the things that he was doing decades ago when everybody else has aged out of it, because it's all that he knows how to do. And that's what the movie's about.
Yeah.
And for that, and many other things, I respect and love it wholeheartedly. I've seen it now 3 times. I've seen it now on my TV as well as in IMAX. And what's great is that it's just as much fun watching it at home as it is seeing it insanely large and loud.
That's good to know, because I have only seen it insanely large and loud. I saw it twice on IMAX, and I have not yet viewed it in my living room, but I look forward to it. I echo everything you said. For the sake of brevity, I will move on, but I just totally agree. I love this film. Who would have guessed 36 years later, Tom Cruise could come back as Maverick and just hit here, man. Val Kilmer comes back. I mean, there are scenes where just I'm thinking, yeah. So anyhow, yeah, it was my number 5. It could have easily been number 3. You get very, these could swap around on any given day for me. Number 2 is, I think, something that you and I both have a lot to be grateful for, and that's RRR. It's coming. You went there. You went there. I had it as number 2. You've got it as number 1.
I
So
couldn't
we'll
not
hold off.
hold that
We'll
thought. Hold that
We'll hold
thought.
off on that. Give me
Yeah,
number
there's not
2.
much mystery left if it's not my number 2, then yeah. Okay, so in second place, my number 2, another film that I think has done very well for us for this year, is Park Chan-wook's Decision to Leave. So I'm a huge fan of this filmmaker, always have been, and just when you think he can't sort of top himself, he does, and he comes out with this kind of showboating, virtuoso display. It's a police procedural, it's a mystery, it's a romance, it's all of those things interwoven into a kind of sort of gothic tale of sort of not unrequited love, but unspoken love. And you know, and it's got a film noir element in there, and just every single little piece. It's one of those great sort of puzzle movies, a bit like Glass Onion or something like that, where everything only falls together right at the last minute, and you realize that you've been watching something far more intricately constructed, far more complicated than you thought. The performances are great. I thought the cinematography and the editing in particular are phenomenal, and it ends on one of the great sort of gut punch endings, and I was just like, this is great. This is what I was originally drawn to Korean cinema by, and it's still alive and thriving today.
James, Decision to Leave has been on my top 10 list for the last month as I was putting this together. When Glass Onion came out, I knew I had to make room on this list, and I went down each and every one of my previous picks, painstakingly trying to compare what was going to get bumped for Glass Onion. And I have to say, in the end, it was Decision to Leave, but it was a very, very tough choice.
Well, I'm glad to hear it was a tough choice, because I was completely in love, infatuated with it.
And it goes back to something I said off air. I'm not for a minute suggesting that a film like Glass Onion is Decision to Leave is done so well. But again, when it comes into just the factor of pure enjoyment, cinematic enjoyment, that's where Glass Onion was able to kind of bump out a Decision to Leave. It's very hard and very subjective and nuanced to make these kind of decisions of better or worse. But for me, that cinematic experience, that the way that it makes me feel at the end, it's not the factor, but it is a good factor. And so, that goes in a little explanation of where that
no, but that's what it's all about. I mean, that's why this is your list and it's not sort of the list, you know. Exactly. This is just your personal response to the movies of 2022. So now I'm on tenterhooks. I've kind of shown my hand a little bit early, but so Steve,
my number 1. Well, I've got it. You've got to guess what it is, because I said we have to go there later. Banshees of Inisherin is my number 1 film of the year. And again, it comes back to when I first watched it, I didn't hold it as highly as I did in my subsequent watching. And again, like you said with Tar, it just keeps playing on my mind. I keep finding myself going back to it, and I enjoy watching even scenes from it so much. And if I'm honest too, I'm in a bit of a Martin McDonagh phase right now, because I just watched In Bruges as well.
Love it.
And I loved that movie so much, and I'm just kind of in this high of Martin McDonagh movies. I'm going to watch 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri later this week, because Tammy's never seen it. But just Brendan Gleeson, Colin Farrell, give me these 2 guys just reading a telephone book and I'll watch it. It's just so compelling. It's such compelling storytelling. I can't speak enough about this film. We've just recently did a review, so I'll direct everybody there for a full explanation, but it's my number 1 film of the year.
Yeah, and it could have easily been mine on another day. You know, like you say, it's pretty arbitrary once you get to the top. You know, there were 3 or 4 or 5 films. My top 5 was pretty much locked as soon as I saw each one of them. They were like, yeah. You know, they're going to be tough to beat. It's a beautiful movie. It's kind of deceptively complex. You know, it feels so kind of simple and effortless, on the surface it's so funny, you know, the characters are so well drawn, and the community and the situation seems so simple but straightforward. But then just as it kind of escalates and as it builds, you realize, oh, okay, you know, this is a movie, this is a story about so much more, you know, about so many other things, just about this sort of this conflict between sort of all of us, and between communities, between friends, between you know, different groups in Ireland at that time, between church and state, whatever you want it to be about. It's about all of those things, and how it can escalate, and when no one wants to back down, and no one feels that they should be the one to back down, you end up in the situation like you do here.
Yeah.
And I thought it
absolutely.
was incredible.
And so I know you're number one now.
And so, yeah, I mean, it kind of had to be, really. My
Yeah.
number one is SS Rajmouli's RRR.
Yeah.
Because it was just, I mean, from the moment we saw it, it was just,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah,
It's all movies. You
Mhm.
know, it's a historical epic. It's an action movie. It's a bromance. It's a martial arts movie. It's a tiger throwing movie. You know, it's absolutely everything. And on top of that, you know, it's this huge celebratory, you know, South Indian epic, which means it's packed full of songs, and the songs are catchy, and the song and dance routines, particularly Natu Natu, are just
Yeah.
epic. And I've watched it a couple of times now. I remember sitting down after we saw it at the cinema. We were very lucky to see it in the cinema. I remember sitting down and showing it to my in-laws, my wife's family, and they were like, "Really? What are we watching?" And I was like, "Just trust me." And they absolutely loved it. They went nuts for it. So
The same. I tell everybody, just watch the first 40 minutes, because you got to get 40 minutes in before the opening credits even come up.
that's
And
true.
I say, if you get to the 40-minute mark and you want to stop, then it's up to you. And everybody, you know, my daughter and boyfriend on a Sunday afternoon after 40 minutes, no, we're watching this. You know, I think you and I have a lot to be grateful for this. This is our number one reviewed film by a long shot. And so we're very appreciative to a lot of our Indian viewers out there who have really watched that and catapulted it up our viewing statistics.
And they've been very supportive of us as well. I mean, we're the first to admit that we don't really know a great deal about Southern Indian cinema, but I thought one of the most pleasantly surprising aspects of that, you know, not only the fact that a lot of people watched it, but then they were very encouraging about you know, us covering more of them. They weren't sort of, "Shut up, you don't know what you're talking about." It was more like, "Oh, well, now you've enjoyed that. Here, I want your opinions on more. You should check out this, and it's been quite the ride.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that easily could have been my number one on any given day, whether it was number two, number one, but just a fabulous, fabulous movie that I've become an evangelist for. It's like, probably I'm more of an evangelist for that movie than any other film I've mentioned today. It's like, you have to see RRR.
Yeah, without a doubt, it's the film that I've been recommending to everybody all year round. You know, I get asked it all the time. You know, what's a good movie? What should I be watching? What's the best film you've seen this year? And it's great to have an answer that I'm so committed to.
Yes,
that is so readily available, because it is on Netflix. I know it's a Hindi dub, but it's better than nothing for most people. It will suffice, and to have it right there on your fingertips and just be able to say, check it out. And I have yet to meet anybody who came back and went, "That was rubbish."
No, I've never heard anybody. They'll get the initial, you know, when you recommend an Indian film, they'll go, "Really? A 3-hour Indian movie?" Trust me, watch it. They never come back disappointed.
No, even my parents watched it, and we were talking about it the other day, and they loved it too. So
fantastic.
That's the ultimate test.
Fantastic. Well, that's our top 10 for 2022. What is your top 10? Where do you agree with us? Where do you disagree? What have we forgotten? I'm sure there's quite a few out there that there's some diamonds in the rough that we never got to.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to hear what you thought of our picks and what your favorites were. You know, any recommendations that you can give us. We might have seen them. I mean, this is a top 10 for a reason. You know, there are a number of other films that we've seen that haven't made it. But what should we be checking out? What do you feel deserved a spot that we might have overlooked? Do let us know in the comments.
We'll see you back in 2023. Until next episode.
Bye-bye.
You're wonderful to